Hey guys, what is going on? So we're currently on the Thursday market breakdown. This week has flown by, honestly, but there's so much amazing opportunity happening at the moment. So what I'm currently looking at on DXY is I'm looking for bullish momentum on this. I've anticipated that there will be a flag here to go to the upside, which is quite good. So essentially just looking at this little bit of price action in this area here to see how we develop, to see if we get continuation from that. Obviously, I'm not taking a trade on the DXY directly, but we can obviously read between it and just see if there will be an entry. If we do get something like that, then that is actually more of a possibility that we will see that, and you could position yourself strategically on EURUSD in this sort of zone here. But at the moment it does still hold a bit of risk because we are sitting at this sort of level here. This could become something a little bit more messy before we go, and I wouldn't want to be stuck in that sort of price action. So really and truly, I want to see this create some sort of flag and then clear this whole area here. And then once we've cleared that area, we can then look for more long positions. But at the moment, daily's looking pretty nice for the long position. Once that's ready, it's going to shoot up. So essentially, we're going to see that. Obviously, like I said previously in yesterday's webinar, I did say that we're not going to see this come to this section here. We're not going to see this potentially be the formation, but more so we're still looking at that outer expanding structure. So this can just aggressively push through this, but understand that we do have this level of a structured approach. It's just the first touch isn't the most cleanest, hence the reason why it wouldn't be the highest probability of this structure playing out. JP225 isn't looking too bad as well. Obviously, we are still sitting in that very good high value area. We've broken way above. If we look at it on the 4 hour, what we can do is we can see here that essentially we broke this trend line and we came back and retested it, which tends to be something that happens quite a lot. Now, this could be the beginning of the formation of the left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And for that reason, if we see this start to aggressively come down, and let's say it pushes, creates a flag over here, I wouldn't hesitate to look for an entry here just because of the context of things here. And then you could see this as the bigger move for it to come to the downside. So stay very sharp with that, but also look at the variations of if you evolved this and you looked at what this structure could become. If you saw it like this, would you really hesitate on looking at something like that for the short? Not really. I mean, obviously we could play back down to here to come back up, so our target zone would be this sort of area here, but we should understand that we've broken it now. We've actually started moving to the high, and now price is just kind of sitting in this area. All we need to do is wait and evaluate if price can give us continuation to the downside. If this starts to keep going up, then yeah, sure, we'll have to take a message from the market and then just wait and see what happens. Perhaps maybe this does become something of a more uglier, I mean, I wouldn't look at that as an angle, absolutely not, but more so we might get something parallel. So I might be looking for something like that, where perhaps maybe we make our way to this, come back down, and then come back up again, and then we might see some sort of decline. It's too early to tell, but the head and shoulders is probably the best sort of structure that I can actually see as a forecast at the moment, so that's something that I would bear in mind. Moving on to the watch list, at the moment we can see that GBP New Zealand has had that little bit of a sell-off, but it's not the most progressive. It was looking good when we did kind of sell off to here, but we retraced back up and started correcting. Definitely gives that sort of feeling of a potential for pushing a flag, but at the same time I think there's still the possibility that we can correct and kind of just make our way up here before we sell off, so definitely be aware of that. But the GBP New Zealand is definitely looking really nice for this sort of area here. We could see this as a squeeze like this and then come into there. So that's more so what I'll be thinking of looking at, but I wouldn't be taking a position on that personally. I think it's just a little bit too messy for myself. I would look for something a little bit better, but definitely that could be a good gameplay for the short, and then we'll look at the next flags on the way down if we start making it towards this low. Obviously, in the bigger time frame structure, we are looking at this to potentially come all the way back down here to then come up so that we can form this sort of larger flag. However, it's not necessary. We can probably just get a bit messier, eventually just correct, make our way back down here and go. So there's so many variations of what could potentially happen. So I would stay very, very sharp with that and be on your management as well. You have New Zealand yen, which once again, if you look at New Zealand yen structurally, it's phenomenal. You know, we have this 1, 2, 3. Every time we've come into this area, we have had a pretty good sell-off. Who's to say that we don't get the same again, right? So take a message from the market. What we can see over here is that we've come back into this area. We scooped, we didn't quite reach it. We pushed again, that was the override. We came back up, but we came back up in structure where we can see we had a 1, 2, 3 into the area and then an aggressive push away. The aggressive push away is a very good indication that we might get more continuation to the downside. So when we broke this, we had the 1, 2, 3, looking at it to at least complete the bottom of this, and then we had this. This is where I was happy to take a position. I was looking for a reduced risk entry, so an insurance entry, so basically to push up, come back in, maybe give me a candlestick confirmation, advanced candlestick confirmation. But what was looking good on the 15 is when I actually looked at it, we had this as the high point. I wasn't too concerned about this. I understood that it could be a possibility, but then we'll be trading back into this sort of up here area, so I wasn't too focused on that. Saw this as an inflection point, and then I was evaluating this bit. So we had a structure of 1, 2, 3 leading into this little hook point, and then I was happy to kind of look at that carefully. As we had the 15 push up, that's when I was on the A game. We retraced, we pushed back down ever so slightly, and that's when I kind of got involved. At this point here, where the next candle closed here, I was even happier because then we had the confirmation of the evening star to go to the downside, so it's increased the probability for this to play out. I did get in with a pretty tight stop loss of 10 pips, which I'm extremely happy about, and then to the low of this, potentially a 10% position on the table. So all in all, being extremely patient and waiting for that and not FOMOing, even though we had that massive drop off, it's eventually paid off. So that's something that, you know, we should definitely look at. I know that we also had the position up here, which is actually one we looked at during this video on the previous video when it was on the 27th. If you go back and look at it, we were looking at this position here, which now essentially is going to be running around about 7%, and then this would be your scaling. So essentially you'd be in a pretty good place. So all in all, those would be the two positions that you'd be looking at, and yeah, New Zealand yen is looking very good. Then we've got USD CAD. So there was the option for the counter trend play here to the low, but I wasn't too convinced with it, especially that we had some speech coming out with US news and so forth. I just kind of, you know, was happy to just stay out of the market and wait for this. Obviously, what I do like about it is that we are getting that corrective squeeze to the low. Now the question is, are we going to create something here to then go and then not come to this low, or will we correct and then get to this low and then look for the counter trend buy? I'm going to be looking to see how we actually react to this low, because if we push through it pretty aggressively, then I will wait for the push up and a flag. But if we correctively squeeze in this nature, then I'll be looking for potentially a phase line entry where, depending on how tight this channel is, we'll see. But I think this has the potential to just drop off and then just finally just come into here and go. So we'll be evaluating that very carefully, because this could turn out to be a monster of a trade. Honestly, if we can get that trade over here, this could be a trade that actually shapes up and actually starts flying to the moon. No, not to the moon, but it could actually turn out and be very good. So that's definitely one that I'm going to be eyeing up and waiting for, because we have broken back into this, so this could turn out to be very good. The next one I'm looking at is GA. GA is still one that I'm not too comfortable with at the moment. Obviously, there is this aspect where we can sell off. So we did have that little mini flag over there, and now we could shape up and have something like this, but I'm not too sold on that, to be honest. And that's not an entry I think personally I'm comfortable taking. If I was up considerably large amount, yeah, for sure, I could entertain that risk, but I think more so I'm interested to see if we do come back up to this area, but we don't have to. That's the one thing we have to understand. Even a correction in this area, understanding the risk that this could happen, and I think that as well is still a good possibility. If that flag shaped up, for sure, I think of many people, that wouldn't be a bad risk to take. But more so, I think if this does come back up and then starts to create, you know, even something like that in depth, I wouldn't hesitate in taking that as a short, and I think I'd be more comfortable to look for that entry than potentially one here. If this did start to sell off, you know, then we'd have to take a message from the market. New Zealand CAD, on the other hand, New Zealand CAD is in that corrective squeeze down here. It doesn't look like we're going to be getting that push up and a flag anytime soon. Could be surprised, but it does look like we are getting this. And we do need to take a message from the market sometimes and understand that it's not always going to be, you know, the way we want it to be. Like, this can just continue, create a flag, sell off, continue, create another flag, and then next thing you know, we're trading into this low or down here. So if we do get a push up and a flag and we start selling from here, that'll be even better. But I think at the moment we might just be selling off. So let's wait and see. Next one is Aussie New Zealand. I'll be honest with you, I'm not very comfortable with this position because I was looking for something else. If this does sell off, come back down here and then come up, I could entertain it. But at the moment, it's just not looking like a trade I want to be taking. So I'm going to stay clear from that for now. Aussie US dollar, actually, I think this one could be a mistrade for me. So I saw this as the potential zone of the entry over here, and to be honest, I was looking for the push up and the push down, but if you look at it on the 15, which is completely fine, we can see that we did retrace over there. If you look at it on the hourly, we haven't really got enough there for me to say I'll take an entry on that. And on the 5 minute, there isn't a sort of entry just yet. So if this does shape up, there could be a potential for a good entry in here, where if we do get something like that and then we sell off, don't be surprised if that actually does commit. So I would keep my eyes sharp with this one. I think this one I'll just mark as purple as well, just because it could shape up and be quite a nice trade. Aussie Swiss, I think personally, I'm not going to be taking a trade on this one this week. I don't think that's a me trade, but you know, I said that about GBP USD and I took it off my watch, put it back on. It is what it is, but yeah, not worth touching it until it comes back into this zone. We do have this sort of bottom, and then we have this as a top, but the bottom is connected with that, and it's just a bit like, where do I want to be taking a trade from? So I think personally, I'm not going to be looking at that one really for a trade. I think that's just going to get that one's going to play with me a bit, so not too interested in that. Next one is Euro GBP. Euro GBP is looking okay. I mean, look, the thing is, we have the potential for this to turn into a good trade. I just think it's not yet fully ready, because look, if we look at it over here on the daily, we can see that we are coming from the low. It does look like it could be a running channel to the upside. Looking at it on the 4 hour, we did have this sort of 1, 2, 3 into here, the push down the flag, and then we can see over here that now we're just kind of sitting in this area here. If this does push up and then sell off, fair enough, then we could be in potentially a very good trade. Looking at it on the 5 minute, it's just not really giving me that commitment yet. It's just kind of just correctively sort of going a bit crazy here. Wouldn't be surprised if this did just turn around and go up again, but then again, there is the room for it to sell off. So I was looking at this for a potential entry, but to be honest, I don't think I would personally want to be sitting in that sort of price action right now. I think that could just really mess with you, but understand structurally it's definitely there. On the hourly, if you look at it like this, it's not too bad. It's not too bad of an entry at all. You know, you could be looking at it for that as your first flag to sell, and I think that personally is a lot nicer than what I saw on GA. But once again, we're gonna have to wait and see how that moves. And then the next one is Euro USD. I think Euro USD is definitely you need some time to develop. Looking at the DXY as well, you know, it could just get a bit messy. I just personally, I don't see myself taking a trade on this one this week. Just can't really see myself really gearing up. I mean, look, if this came in here, pushed up, created a small flag, and we went, I wouldn't be surprised that that entry would go there, and then we would manage aggressively and see if it does come back down. But more than likely, if we did come into this zone, more than likely we will probably push up and go. GBP US dollar. Okay, this one, there is a potential entry for here, but because of the angle of the second touch, I'm not too convinced just yet. I'm going to wait for the third touch. So what I would like to see is for this to come back into this area to push up, and then at that point there maybe evaluate for the risk, probably similar to what I had on New Zealand yen. But if we do get the push down, a little bit of a flag, even if the flag is just below here, it's completely fine. More than likely GU could turn out to be a monster of a trade as well. It's actually positioned very well. If you look at it structurally, we have this larger expanding which actually breaks above this high, which is perfect. Obviously what we do know about expanders is that they can work as continuation, but the interesting thing about this is it could come all the way down here before we start going long. So we have the 1 2 3 into this area, and then we can see that we had the push down from this section, and now we're creating continuation. I'm not in favorable for this 2-touch flag. It would be good positioning because really and truly protection, we would be looking at this area anyway, but more so if this does develop further and starts to become, you know, something a little bit like that, then at least then I can understand it. So I will wait for that 3rd touch personally and see how that develops. The next one I'll be looking at is Swiss yen. Like I said previously, I think throughout this whole week, just not ready, but it's still good to have them on board just to know. GBP yen, which I'll go over in a second, but CAD yen not ready, and then USD yen, just, you know, it's in no man's land right now for me. I will wait because it's either going to continue trickling, make its way up here, maybe get a push down. Who knows? We've got to wait and see. So GBP yen. Now, the reason why this one is an interesting one is 2 reasons. We do have this little point up here. We did come in with a correction and aggressively push up, but there is the room to create a larger flag to create accumulation of price before we go long. So if I go into the hourly price, we can see that we had this corrective squeeze into this area, and then we sold off a little bit over here, and then over here we're creating a larger flag to maybe accumulate more price and fill in this low here. So positioning, this could turn out to be quite a good position, the same as New Zealand yen. And what I was looking at on the 15 is this little bit of price. So we had we had this whole section here where we drove back into it, and then we push down and start creating a flag. At this point here, I think positioning for the flag isn't so bad. A reduced risk entry, if you were to entertain it, you'd be roughly around about 72 pips. However, over here, on this flag, which more so was here, I think at this point here, you could protect yourself, even if you were to have quite a little bit of a large stop, but this is 27 pips, and look at it this way. If you take 27 pips to the low, that's still 9%. Still could turn out to be a very good trade. So understand that this little bit of correction can just now push aggressively and come into this low here. So remember, we are looking to potentially go long, especially across the board with the yen pairs. But if this does start to sell off and you're positioned over here, and this does, you know, for some reason continue to sell off and doesn't come back up to this high and starts trading back down here, and you've positioned yourself there, think about that positioning compared to, you know, think waiting for it to come up here. You could actually see yourself in a monster of a position. So I think this could turn out to be a very, very nice position. Definitely, like I said, it doesn't have to come down here, but more than likely it can fill in this section here to then create accumulation to go long and then fill in that final gap. So from here to here, it's a pretty good move. There's more than enough room to manage this. To the low, I think it's a little bit tight, but you still can manage to break even if needed. So yeah, guys, that's basically it for this week's watch list and wildcards. I think the main watch focus is pretty much these pairs. I did add in Aussie US dollar over here, which I think personally I'll take it as a mistrade. Taking it as a mistrade because I just don't have that confirmation just yet. The risk entry would have been sick, but I've missed it. It is what it is. And then we have GBP US dollar, which could shape up over there. USD CAD, which could shape up if we correctively make our way to this low. And then we've got already starting the run, we've got Euro GBP, which is there. We've got GBP Yen, which is looking very nice. And then we've got New Zealand Yen, which is currently running roughly around about 2.6%. So yeah, guys, have a good week and let's see how these move. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be pretty much well in the move. So guys, have a good week and I'll catch you in the next video.